So today we're going to talk about Chivalry is Dead. This is a new 2 to 5 player fantasy chariot racing game, and we're going to talk a little bit about the game setup as well as how to play. So one of the first things you're going to want to decide is which race to play with. The game is played with teams of 2 to 3 chariots. The chariots are comprised of one of these 5 races. We have kobolds, goblins, dwarves, humans, and elves. Each of the races has a unique racial ability. They have some unique racial perks. Additionally, the basic stats of each team, each race, is slightly different. For example, the goblins are a very offensive race. They have a reroll ability on their attack, and they start out with an offensive build. If we look at the dwarves, they're almost the exact opposite of that, where they have an ability to reduce damage from attacks, and they start out by default as a defensive build. Now to customize a chariot, we've got a couple of options. So here we have a kobold card. We've got this kobold number 1 with his card as well as his dual dial. On the left side of our character card, we have his unique racial ability. In this case, it's an oil trap for the kobolds. On the right hand side, we've got the build. So kobolds start out with a resilient build. This build is very driver centric, allows a little bit of better control on those turns, as well as some advantages when we are doing flip checks. Now I do have some options on adjusting the build. We have 3 build cards that come with each race. Because the kobolds start out as resilient, they also get a speed build, a defensive build, and an offensive build. So I can take one of these cards, I can place it over the chariot, and now he's an offensive build. Additionally, I'm going to want to give him a perk. Now, kobolds have access, in this case, to 3 traps because they're very trap heavy. They get a spike trap, they get a bee trap, and they get a bear trap. So we're going to go ahead and give him a bear trap. Since in this particular case, both his ability as well as his perk have limited uses shown by these little icons, we're going to put a couple tokens on there so that we can keep track of the usage. Lastly, we need to add control cards, and these control cards are used to decrease damage around the turns. They're also used for a charge ability during the gameplay. And on the right, we have a dual dial. This allows us to keep track of various stats for the chariot. So we have our max speed, we have the current speed the chariot is moving, we have the driver score, we have the left wheel, and then we have the right wheel health. So this allows us to keep track of health as he gets damaged in a very easy manner. Now once we've set up our chariot, what we're going to want to do is set up the map. So on the map we've got these terrain tokens, we've got water tokens that can be set on the mud, we've got rock tokens that we can set on these rock markers. And what this allows us to do is to set up the map to be a little different each time we play, allow some different obstacles around the course itself. Water will slow you down a little bit, rocks will tend to do damage to your chariot, so it creates some more interesting gameplay. Now, at the beginning of the game, we're going to line our chariots up at the starting line. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put 1 token for each chariot in a bag, and we're going to choose those at random to determine who goes first. Now, our overall gameplay is broken into rounds. So at the beginning of each round, all chariots set their turn speed, and then once everyone is acknowledged that they're ready to go, you start pulling the chariot tokens out of the bag. That determines the turn order. Now during each player's turn, they have 2 phases. They have a charge phase and a movement phase. Now during the charge phase, you can optionally use up one of your control cards. If you do that, then you basically get an extra movement. You can roll a die, add your driver score, and then you can move that number of spaces. Now that has to be movement. It cannot be attacks or special abilities or anything like that. Then you have your movement phase. Now in your movement phase, you can move whatever your current speed is on your chariot that you set at the beginning of the round. Now when you attack another chariot, you need to decide where you're going to attack it. So you can attack the driver. If you attack the driver, you have a chance of stunning him. If he's stunned, then he can't use his perks or abilities for 1 full turn. It's also a little bit easier to hit the driver considering you can attack it from either side. You can attack the animals. If you attack the animals and do damage there, it slows down the chariot permanently for the game. And then lastly, if you attack the chariot itself, you'll damage either the left or the right wheel. get the wheel low enough into that red zone, and it has a very good chance of flipping and leaving debris on the field. Now, regardless of the target, determining damage is done in the same manner. Use one movement to move sideways to attack. You roll a die, you add your attack value, you subtract his defensive value, and anything left over goes through to the target. Now, turns have a special significance in the game. This is one of the reasons why you might find yourself needing to slow down a little bit in between rounds. For example, if I come into this 12 speed here and I'm doing 16, I'm going to take 4 points of damage to my outside wheel because I'm kind of careening around this corner and putting too much damage on that wheel. Now, I can augment that damage a little bit by using one of my control cards. If I decide to use one up, then I can roll a die, I can add my driver score, and I can reduce any damage I would have taken by that amount. Now, beyond that, Chivalry is Dead is very much a brutal game of chariot racing, where the goal is to destroy your opponents and try to be the first chariot to make it 2 laps.